I'm Erin Hines talking with socionomist Pete Kendall about his exclusive walking tour of Wall Street in Lower Manhattan. In our previous interview, you talk about the skyscraper indicator in architectural buildings. What other sites will you visit on the tour?
Well, like I said, it's mainly focused on the buildings, but there are a lot of detours that we'll take. As an example, there's the Charging Bull, and it's really become more iconic than I even realized. Some tour groups say it's the most visited attraction in New York City, and you will see big crowds around it, and you'll see they're selling replicas, and they talk about it as a symbol of optimism. And it actually dates back to the crash of 1987. That's when the person who created it, who sculpted it, decided that he wanted to create something as a response to the crash. But then he places it in front of the New York Stock Exchange, and it kind of initially it was rejected by the city, but it then became a permanent fixture on the street in 1990 at another peak. In succeeding times, it's sort of fenced off in bear phases, and people flock to it in bull markets again.
What else are you excited to check out?
Well, one of the stops on our tour is the New York Stock Exchange itself, which has quite a history, and it is definitely socionomically inspired. It's waxed and waned over the course of its existence with the stock market, formed in 1792 as a response to a panic. Here again, we see that what takes place in the bear market ultimately ends up affecting each successive bull market.
Lunch at Delmonico's is included in the price of the tour. What's so significant about that restaurant?
Delmonico's. It was started in the 1830s as a kind of a fancy food shop, much like you see today in New York. Only there's many more than there was then. At the time, it was the only one. And then into 1835, well, they had a great fire in 1835, which was at the top. But then they had a real estate boom that continued after the top in stocks. So it's sort of like the era that we're in now. Delmonico's opened a fancy new sit-down restaurant that had some innovative things, like a menu and tables that you could sit at and have all to yourself. Prior to that, there were no restaurants in the United States, so it's very historic.
Delmonico's is a steakhouse, correct?
It's a bull market, you gotta have steak.
In our previous interview, you mentioned that you wanted to do the tour, but you kept putting it off. So why is now the right time to launch the event?
I think now, because where we are in the wave principle, we're at the peak of a grand super cycle bull market, and that is actually etched into the stone, the streets and side streets of New York. And so this is the time to go because you can see the whole picture.
And what architectural styles and development projects do you anticipate New York City will build in the near future?
Well, we'll see it. It's happening right now, and it's basically a residential boom. And when we do the tour, we'll find out the significance of that, which will lead to certain conclusions that we'll draw together as we finish. We'll sum it up.
Thanks, Pete. We're looking forward to seeing you in New York on September 8th. Remember to stay tuned for our final interview where Pete will walk us through the tour step by step.